So what I wanted to show is how can you actually automate that and turn exactly that action into a shortcut where you don't have to remember anything other than the shortcut. So that's precisely what I've done here, using the powers of VS Code. So if we're just cleaning up a little bit, VS Code allows to define tasks, to define tasks, period. And a task can be anything that can be automated, by either invoking a VS Code built-in function or by even running an external tool, right? And tasks can be when they're defined, which you normally do at the project level, so they basically stay with your project and they stay in source control. Tasks can be invoked if you go into the command bar and then basically look for run task. That happens to be showing up right at the top because it's the last command I've used. Clicking on that gives you a very nice interactive selection of the various tasks you've got available in your current workspace. So you can see I've got pbi-tools compile, the thing I just had to type in. If I hit my enter key now, you can see a new terminal pops up down there and everything just happens automatically. I basically, I'm done. I've got my latest sources compiled into a new PBX file, bookmarks - compiled. And in fact, I can run this as many times as I want. Here we go. I'm recompiling it now. I've got the override option selected, which means whatever my latest sources are, it's always they're always going to be used, and the file is going to be replaced. So let's have a look at how that's being defined. In fact, very conveniently, we've got this sitting right here. So it's all in JSON. The world lives on JSON nowadays, and in fact, I'm just about able to put it on my screen here. So first of all, we've got a label here. That's the one we just saw in the dropdown. We have a command specified. So pbi-tools I've got on my path, which is why I don't need to specify where pbi-tools actually lives. I literally just put that as a command. In conjunction with the shell type, it will automatically look up my path variable. Then I've got arguments, and basically all arguments which I would normally specify on the command line need to be specified as an array. So I've got compile, which is the command. Then I've got /bookmarks, which is my local folder. Then I'm specifying a custom output path, and ultimately I'm also specifying the override flag, which allows me to automatically overwrite an existing file. So that's happening here. And everything else is basically just some extra tweaking. So for instance, down here, I'm saying this particular task is getting a dedicated panel, which means whenever I run pbi-tools compile as a VS Code task, it will always output into the same panel within VS Code. And then the other thing, which makes things even more interesting, this guy here. So I'm specifying this is a build task, and it's also the default build task. So basically, VS Code, obviously, because it's used for software usually, it has the concept of a build task built in. And that one happens to have a default shortcut, which is, let me just show you how to find it. So if I do F1 and then type build, down here, you can see run build task. The shortcut for that is Control-Shift-B. And that's the default. That's what ships with VS Code. So if I go out of this and then even remove that and all of that, and if I now do Control-Shift-B, as you can see, it automatically runs my pbi-tools compile task. And again, from my point of view, build is probably the closest to pbi-tools compile when you're sort of in the context of a pbi-tools project. And now it's even easier. All I need to do is to remember Control-Shift-B, and I can run this as many times as I want. And pbi-tools will always do the job for me. So that's that. Now we also saw there were a few more tasks available here. So again, if I do this, I also have pbi-tools extract and pbi-tools info. In terms of how they're defined, it's very similar. pbi-tools extract basically has different arguments, otherwise it's all the same. And then pbi-tools info is even easier because it only has one single argument. Now, there's only one default build task, obviously, right? So if I want to create shortcuts for those additional tasks, I need to create custom shortcuts. And that's precisely what I've done here. So for info, the shortcut I've defined is Shift, Windows, and I as in info. I'm just clicking that now, and you can see because I specified dedicated panel, they both show up side by side now. So I can actually click back and forth. And info is particularly relevant because I may want to look at the process ID in order to use the pbi-tools watch mode, right? Which currently requires process ID. So how did I define those custom shortcuts? If you go to File and Preferences, we've got keyboard shortcuts here, Control-K, Control-S. That one opens up a page which gives a full listing of all shortcuts currently in effect. Default shortcuts, extension shortcuts, and user shortcuts. Because I set a run task shortcut, you can actually type that in here in order to get it filtered. And then we can see very nicely that Shift Windows E and Shift Windows I happen to be user shortcuts. And those exist at the it's a bit funny, but those exist at the user profile level. So basically, you define those shortcuts not at the folder level, but for your entire user profile, unfortunately. But how can you see how that's defined? Again, if you go in here and type keyboard shortcuts and open and select the JSON version, you actually get access to the key bindings file, which, as you can see, happens to be in your user profile. And that one is basically a JSON array where every individual shortcut defined is specified as a JSON object. So key is what is my shortcut, command is, in this case, run task, and then the argument in that case would be the task name. So what I'm doing and what I would recommend as a pattern to basically have those shortcuts defined as standards in your user profile, and then to ensure that every individual project you're working with always has the pbi-tools info as well as pbi-tools extract tasks defined, right? For pbi-tools extract in particular, obviously you need to specify the file you want to extract. So that would always have to be project specific. That's not something you can do globally. And so with those two things in place, basically a repository that has matching tasks as well as your user profile with those shortcuts, you've got a pretty good extra level of automation here, right? And in terms of reference, first of all, there is the Visual Studio key bindings page, which explains the syntax, for instance, and which keys can be used, and what's accepted and all of that. And then there's the tasks page, which talks about the task syntax and how you basically define those tasks in your task.json project file. So I can recommend those two as a reference here. I'm more than happy to actually share both this one as well as that one publicly, so that anyone interested can use that as a template. That's what I had with respect to shortcuts.